Hello everyone, and it is the first podcast of the year 2026. The UFC has already made its debut, but unfortunately I have a new job, which I am currently in training for, which means I'm pretty busy. I'm looking things up. I'm trying to better myself, trying to upgrade my skills. And that meant that I really couldn't get around to doing a preview for UFC 324. Also, I'm not going to lie, UFC 324 had a limited amount of appeal to me. Not that I thought the fights were going to be bad. And for the most part, they were not. They were pretty good. Couple of exceptions. But my problem was more that, like, for a first ever Paramount pay-per-view, non-pay-per-view card, I'm not really sure. Numbered event, let's go with that. The idea of having it headlined by Gaethje versus Pimblett, two fighters I have no actual problem with, but that I didn't really think should be actually in a title shot at the time, because, let's be honest, they're not the two best guys in the division. I know interim titles are always going to be a little bit subjective, a little bit weird, but it has to be said that Arman Tsarukyan should have been one of the fighters in this fight, and he probably should have been fighting Max Holloway. That's what I would have done. That's my personal opinion. You could also go Charles Oliveira, I guess, but Oliveira had already lost to Tsarukyan. Even if that was a good fight, it would have felt a little bit flat. Hell, you could have even done Tsarukyan versus Gaethje, and I think it probably would have been okay. But Pimblett is not a championship level fighter, and I think we found that out. And Gaethje is a guy whose recent form had not been spectacular. He had not necessarily been losing bad fights or anything. Like, he'd beaten, he was on a 3 of his last 4 fight winning streak. Like 3-1 in his last 4, having beaten Fiziev twice and Poirier, which is not nothing. But, you know, losing to Max Holloway. So, like, ideally, Holloway versus Tsarukyan was the way to go. But there was that, plus the fact that Amanda Nunes, in the fight that did not end up happening against Kayla Harrison, ironically it was Harrison that pulled out, was a fight with a fighter coming out of retirement. As much as I think Amanda Nunes has probably still been training and absolutely has been plugged in, she's running a gym or a fight team at this point. But at the same time, I'm never going to be excited for a returning fighter after a layoff. The reason being is that sometimes they are very disappointing. Not always. Shout out Randy Couture, Tim Sylvia. But I find that I simmer the expectation down almost as a defensive mechanism to not have to deal with, you know, if it does suck. There's that. But yeah, the card, but that probably played a role in me making the time to make a prediction video. Doesn't mean I didn't have predictions. I had Gaethje, I had Yadong Song. To be clear, Yadong Song was a pure heart pick. I don't like O'Malley. I find him annoying. And I find his fans in particular annoying because I've always said this, that, like, I will take UFC fighters who have a, how should I put this, inflated view of themselves, because that's kind of part of what makes them good. That's part of what drives them to be the best fighter that they can be. I accept that. But having to deal with the fans who have that same thing going on, annoying, problematic. So I went with Yadong Song. He let me down. But I had Waldo Cortez Acosta. I had Natalia Silva, although to be clear, I did score that fight for Thug Rose. I had John Silva. I had Umar. I had Atiba Gauthier. Although, hey, I had Gauthier by decision and won so much money. I'll take that. I will take that to the bank. The card did not start well for me because I had, respectively, Bukauskas, Johnson, and Fugit. Fugit, admittedly, was just like a complete flyer. I just didn't have a lot of faith in Ty Miller. I was like, you know what? We're gonna take Fugit. We're gonna see if he spoils the party. He didn't. That's that. So, like, 4 fights in, I was 1-3, having only won on Josh Hockett. So that was a bad feel. But, like, down the stretch, it got going. It got going. And I only lost 1 fight on the main card. Roared back in there to have a pretty decent outing. So let's talk about this fight real quick before we get to the picks for UFC 325, which is going to be the meat of this video. Gaethje versus Paddy Pimblett for the title. Gaethje won. I had him winning 4 rounds to 1. I don't really think that there's really any rounds to talk about in terms of looking at scorecards, honestly. Gaethje dropped Pimblett in the first and the second. I think you have to give him those rounds. The third round, like I said, was the one I gave to Pimblett because Gaethje just kind of took it off, it seems. He threw somehow he actually did end up throwing 54 punches. Go figure. It felt like a lot less live, and definitely his least accurate round because he went 25 of 54. But yeah, it was just a round where he kind of like took his foot off the gas, stopped doing some things, allowed Paddy Pimblett to establish his jab, establish his range, and just kind of pepper him and do damage. So I have no problem with Pimblett winning that round. He has to. And then I believe. Okay, so Judge Mike Bell gave a second round to Pimblett, and I honestly don't know what it would be. because I'm looking at rounds 4 and 5. And it's got to be one of those. And in both of those, Gaethje outlanded Pimblett on quantity and also on quality, and had the control, so to speak, of what there was. So I don't know what you would give Pimblett there. But yeah, as long as Gaethje was on the front foot pressuring Pimblett, I'm not going to say Pimblett didn't have answers, because he tried and he did catch him a couple of times with some good counters. But he got walked into the cage kind of repetitively and hurt pretty badly there. And then got out dirty boxed, and, Gaethje did his thing. And that's really all there is to it. So, all hail Justin Gaethje, our new champion. I'm super happy for him to have the belt. He deserves it. He's had a hell of a career. He's shortened his lifespan for us all, for our entertainment. And all that being said, I suspect he'll probably lose the belt to either Ilia Topuria or Arman Tsarukyan at some point in the near future. And we will get back to Georgian and Azerbaijani overlords. Armenian. Fiziev is the Azerbaijani. My bad. Anyways, really fun fight, but it didn't feel like a title fight. And I think both of those two things can be true. I mean, there are a lot of really good fights in the history of the UFC that don't feel like they're necessarily title fights or title fight worthy. Like, there is a different feel to the technical level of a championship level fighter than there is to just a good fight. Because if you want just a good fight, you can find those on the regional scenes. You can find that with Stephan Bonner versus Forrest Griffin. And I know Griffin would go on to be a champion, but those guys at that time were not championship caliber fighters. They had a great fight that, in many people's opinion, including Dana White, had a massive part in how the UFC was saved. So I'm not shitting on this fight. If you enjoyed this fight, great. I enjoyed the hell out of it. But a title fight, it did not feel like it. In the co-main event, Sean O'Malley did beat Song Yadong. Not much to say, honestly. I gave Song the first round, and on rewatch, I'm not entirely sure that's even defensible. I will freely admit that, the heart maybe did the thinking there. But the second round I gave to Song Yadong. So I had Song winning, but I fully expected O'Malley to win the fight because, like I said, the first round I definitely knew I was being generous to Song Yadong. I was bringing a rating to his strikes that didn't necessarily belong. And I had that feeling. The second round, I do think he won. And then the third round, O'Malley clearly won. And the problem basically was that Song Yadong, who has historically had issues with cutting the cage, has historically had issues with people who do not have to come to him to get their offense working, was unable to reliably, there were a couple of moments, but reliably cut off the cage and put O'Malley into his game, his range, and his ability to win. When he did do that, predominantly in the second round, he was winning. But O'Malley always had the ability to do what O'Malley does, which is he's a near 6 foot tall featherweight, get to range and just exploit it. Abuse the fact that you have long ass limbs. And for your division, you are exceptionally tall. So O'Malley got the win. I did think he was kind of classy post-fight where he said Merab, if Merab gets a title shot, he's not going to complain about it. It's better than I thought we would get. Like, straight up, that was better than I thought we would get. So I appreciate that. But he did also call for a title shot. I'm not gonna hate on that too much. Derek Lewis looked terrible. Got knocked out in the second round by Waldo Cortez Acosta. I'm trying to figure out in my head how much of that is Waldo Cortez Acosta continuing to improve, because he has done that. But also how much of that is just Derek Lewis is kind of done. Landing 4 out of 22 punches and 4 out of 21 punches is it's bad. So I don't know what I want to see done with Lewis, because I'd love to see him get paid, and that means fighting. But at the same time, aside from guys who are just not very good, I kind of feel like everyone's going to kind of hurt him, kind of bad. Is what it is, I suppose. That is the unfairness of the game. Natalia Silva versus Thug Rose Namajunas. I sort of get why this fight went the way it did. And essentially, it's that Natalia Silva absolutely dominated round 3. And I'm assuming they gave her round 1. Round 1 was a bit meh. Thug Rose had a very good second round. Although not even that. She landed 5 significant strikes, 25 strikes total, 2 minutes of top control. It's not great. But I don't know. I guess I can look on the bright side and say that Thug Rose fought without being completely afraid for 3 rounds, which is at this point kind of good. Like, I know that it's been since the Carla Esparza fight where she's had, like, a truly terrible fight. Like, her fight with Manon Fiorot was fine. Her fight with Amanda Hebosh was fine. Her fight with Tracy Cortez was fine. Her fight with Erin Blanchfield, even though she lost, was fine. Her fight with Miranda Maverick was fine. So it's been a while since she's put on a real stinker. But at the same time, there's not the sense of danger that she had during her 115 run. And I also didn't really like this matchup because these were the only two real viable contenders you have for Valentina Shevchenko right now. And risking Natalia Silva's run on this fight, I think was a bad idea. I think it was a bad idea. And it almost bit them in the ass. But Silva gets the win. Am I lower on my thoughts on her than I was coming in? Not really, because Thug Rose is a very unique challenge. So how you do against her doesn't really affect how I think you're going to do against other people. And that even includes Valentina. So granted, I've said this repetitively. I am picking Valentina for when she does fight Natalia Silva. That being said, Natalia Silva is about the only person who I think has interesting questions for Valentina in the division. So please make that fight happen and stop risking it. I guess that's it in a nutshell. Jean Silva, Arnold Allen. Fun fight. Jean Silva continues to be the guy who, in a nutshell, is insanely athletic, insanely powerful. I scored all 3 rounds for him, although round 1 might be worth a rewatch for me because according to UFC stats, and I always take UFC stats with a grain of salt, but still it kind of sometimes makes me think of things. Allen did have a significant advantage in strikes landed, and I was scoring the round for Allen up until the end when Silva hurt him late and gave him a flurry to steal the round. And I by the way, something that came out on Twitter during this fight is people being like, "You can't steal a round." Yeah, you can. Think of all the scoring criteria: effective grappling, effective striking, effective aggression, damage, etc. Damage should have been at the front there, but you know what I mean. Read the judging criteria and realize at no point does it say you won 4 minutes of a round, you won the round. No, that's not how that works. There's a good chance it's not a bad idea to win 4 minutes of a round. But you could absolutely lose the fight in the last round. You can get dropped. You can get dropped multiple times. You can get hurt badly. Like, yes, you could steal a round. And I thought Silva did. Now, if you gave this round to Allen, I'm not going to complain too much. I don't know how you could give the second or third to Allen. And I'll leave it at that. Allen's typical problem is like what came through here is that he doesn't have the physicality to dominate opponents. Like, dude is really, really good. Very technically smart, comes up with a good game plan, works at a really good pace, often like more than enough pace to actually win the fights. The problem is that when he hits somebody and when John Silva hits somebody, the reactions are just really goddamn different. And that's really just all there is to it. And Silva also has the ability to like brute strength stuff to get takedowns and things, which he did do, particularly in round 3, where he scored 3 takedowns and even did like a skateboard jump off of the back of Arnold Allen at one point. Arnold Allen is one of those fighters that I would like. I would love if we could just give him like a couple of tenths, like a little bit more athleticism and see what he can do. I think it would be great, but that's it's not the world we live in. Umar Nurmagomedov, David Figueiredo, I have nothing really to say other than this continues a pattern of Umar being willing to just have very dull fights when the opponent can't stop him from doing that. And Figueiredo landed all of 8 significant strikes. Now I've said, not making a case for a title shot off that, but, hey, get the dubs. Atiba Gauthier versus Andre Puliev. This was... like I said, I had Puliev by decision because my worry, my concern, my hopes, my caveats this whole time about Atiba Gauthier is dude has world champion upside. He has the athleticism that you cannot in any way, shape, or form teach. He has power, lightning speed, a reasonable amount of creativity even. And, like, even some defensive awareness. Like, he's probably ahead of the game of where he should be. But At the same time, the depth of skill is not really there. And it kind of showed, because after he stunned Puliev early, and then again early in the second round, he couldn't really do it again in the fight. You know, there's certain tells in his game, certain entries, certain limitations. And this is not a hating on the guy by any means, because he is super green. He is super raw, and he's at a gym that basically has nobody on his athletic tier, or at least probably doesn't have anyone on his athletic tier to challenge him. And that's kind of the thing, is he's gonna have to move to a different gym before I think he can unlock things. Maybe not. We have seen great things with Dricus du Plessis out of a relatively small gym. We have seen Conor McGregor do great things at a straight blast gym. When it wasn't particularly big, he definitely made it big, and it never really got rolling. There are some other examples of this, but it does feel like Gauthier, if he's going to really be the killer that I know he can be, it is going to have to be a step up in coaching, training partners, and in general environment. Because once Puliev stopped being shocked by his speed and explosiveness, he was able to circle away, pick him apart from the outside, and generally outland him. Because even while getting dropped in round 1 and 2, he actually doubled up the output on Gauthier in almost both rounds. And then won the third, in my opinion. Not necessarily, to be clear. If you gave all 3 rounds to Gauthier, I have no problem. But I did score the third for Puliev. So I made a bucket load of money of that, because I was like, Puliev is really tough, really durable. And as much as he didn't really have answers for Christian Leroy Duncan, he was able to hang around and just be tough. So I figured he'd be able to do that again and lose, but be around, but be there at the end of the day. And he was. Nikita Krylov versus Modestas Bukauskas. Krylov picking up a win here that doesn't really assure me that he's fixed anything. He still seems chin very in the air, which has always been a thing. And now that I know that his inhuman durability is gone, it concerns me a lot. Alex Perez absolutely mauled Charles Johnson while missing weight. Alex Perez has all the talent in the world, all the ability in the world, and just all the bad luck / demons / fragility / inability to really consistently make weight. That's kind of it. Josh Hockett beat the tar out of Denzel Freeman. Got it stopped right before the end of the first round, which was the second one of the night to be like that. Holy moly. 2 buzzer beaters, and arguably 3 actually, because Krylov knocked out Bukauskas at 4:57 of the third round, which is amazing. So we essentially got 3 buzzer beaters, and I don't have much else to say other than a lot of people were thinking that Freeman could win this fight, and I was tempted to, because I don't like Hockett. I don't enjoy the pro wrestling Randy Savage cheese fest that he puts on. And it's not even that I disagree with the fact that he supports Trump or whatever. There's a lot of fighters that support Trump, and I don't actually have a problem with them. I do on moral grounds, but I've been through this. Fighters plus morality, not actually a thing, not actually something you should be looking for. But it's just kind of the scriptedness, the fakeness. I guess the only thing I can say is that he limited himself to basically just calling Brittany Griner a man and Waldo Cortez Acosta a deadbeat dad. So on that level, it was an improvement from his recent attempt to get the UFC to sign people who are objectively terrible to get beat up. If it works, it works. I can't hate on him on a professional level, but I think that being an exciting heavyweight who just knocks people out is really all you need. I don't think this window dressing is actually required. That's just me, though. And opening up the night, Ty Miller did put on a show against Adam Fugit. I don't know what that means, because Fugit is pretty much the bottom tier of the UFC. But Miller did what he could with what was in front of him. He put on a good boxing clinic. Dude does need to defend his body better. The body was very, very available for Fugit. So We'll see about that next time. But there was a fair amount of violence, a fair amount of power, and like Fugit's tough, so finishing him in the first round is, that's legitimately cool. I mean, Fugit's a guy who, did go to the third round with Michael Morales, and there is reason to assume that means something. Although, to be clear, he's also been finished in the first round by Islam Dulatov, so I don't know. Maybe Morales is just really kind of clunky striking, is really more to blame for Fugit being able to go into the third round with him than anything about Fugit's durability or defensive acumen actually really is part of that. So let's talk about UFC 325. Now, before I do get into the picks, though, always remember I am going to be talking about betting. I'm going to be talking about information you can use to bet. I'm going to be talking about my own betting. However, fight fans, you should remember that bet responsibly. The UFC and MMA as a whole is a chaotic idea. Small gloves plus, matchmaking that, I shouldn't say matchmaking, policies that make it clear that a lot of fighters fight kind of injured, including a fight that got removed from last week's card, probably for that reason. Michael Johnson, Alexander Hernandez, is a cautionary tale that the shadow of James Krause is still very, very much in play. All right, let's kick it off here. UFC 325 from Sydney, Australia. First travel card of the year. Let's go. In the main event, Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez. Now, there is the obvious disclaimer here that has to be mentioned. Volk is 37. 37 is past the magic age of the general decline of MMA fighters. And in the first fight with Lopez, he did look like a man falling off. So can Diego Lopez win? Yes. Father Time could give him a massive assist here. Volkanovski could not be able to get the job done, utilize the same footwork, the same competent striking, the same complete game, the same amazing skills that he has shown for a number of years during his time in the UFC. That is on the table. However, I don't understand how anyone could pick Lopez. Now, to be clear, again, you could pick Father Time, and that Volkanovski would just fall off. But I've been debating on social media, Discord, etc., with a bunch of people who are like, no, Lopez will rise to the occasion. No, he won't. His gym has shown no ability to adjust in a rematch. He had no game plan answers the first time for Volkanovski. He had just young man answers. He had, I'm 31, you're 37, or 36. I forget how old Volkanovski was at the time, but that is the end of, the conversation. It's either Volkanovski has become too old to win this fight, or he wins. These are the choices. I hate rematches that happen too soon, and this is the case of that. Lopez has had one fight since losing to Volkanovski 9 months ago that he won against John Silva, that had everything to do with John Silva and his flaws, his mental issues, his lack of forethought, his lack of game planning, his lack of an idea of how to be safe, than it had anything to do with Lopez's game leveling up. So yeah, Lopez can win, but it's Volkanovski's fight to lose. It's Volkanovski will be losing to Father Time rather than Diego Lopez. And that's why I don't love this main event. And I know I'm a broken record. I like to see legitimacy, structure of divisions, the best fight the best, people work their way up and do their thing. And in that regard, this should be Movsar Evilev's title shot. I get it. Evelev is not very popular, very utilizable right now. But goddamn, why are we doing Lopez again? Because if Lopez wins, like I said, I'm not going to give him credit. I'm not going to have any I'm not going to enjoy anything about it. There's not going to be a moment of triumph, a moment of like development, a moment of like Lopez going from action fighter high tier to champion caliber fighter. It's just that Volk would have fallen off. I'm a little sour about this fight. I'm sure you can tell. Volkanovski is the favorite at minus 145 to minus 150. Plus 118 to plus 122 on Lopez. I would still be betting on Volkanovski at those odds. I think he should be a bigger favorite. I know, Father Time, 37 years old. All of that fun stuff. But Lopez just is not that good or that likely to make adjustments or improvements. Benoit Saint-Denis versus Dan Hooker. I've gone back and forth on this one a little bit. Benoit Saint-Denis, though, is going to be my pick. It's kind of for the same reason that the Arman Tsarukyan pick came in for me against Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker has this reputation for being good against wrestlers, and I do understand why, because he's beaten a number of primarily takedown guys. We're talking Mateusz Gamrot, we're talking Claudio Puelles, back in the day, Gilbert Burns, Jim Miller in 2018, Mark DeCasey, Marco Davina, Hatsuki Oki, except like it goes on for a while. But something you'll note about all of those guys, except for DeCasey, who we'll talk about a little more in detail, is that they are not athletic takedown artists. They are persistent, gritty, grinding veterans, and they are not dynamic. You're on your butt, you're not getting up, I dominate you, I own your soul types. And those guys, minus Mark DeCasey, whose problem is that he is absolutely the most anemic offensive fighter I think I have ever seen. Seriously, Mark DeCasey is what happens when an athlete just never gets it. Never gets how to be mean, how to be angry, how to be destructive. Kind of a problem Denzel Freeman ran into against Josh Hockett. And that allowed Hooker to beat him. But yeah, I mean, we are talking about a guy who lost to predominantly takedown artists like Jason Knight and Maximo Blanco. I understand that those are like a long time ago, but like also we just saw Tsarukyan do his thing. So yeah, Benoit Saint-Denis by submission. Now I will say there's a weird one here because like Benoit Saint-Denis like favorite, if you like look at the over under and then the method, is submission over. If this fight gets into the over, Saint-Denis is not winning by submission. It would have already happened beforehand, is what I'm saying. Is what I'm getting at here. So, I am picking Saint-Denis. It's risky because he is absolutely defensively inept. He doesn't exist in the defense play. He has no concept of defense. And Hooker could light him up, could starch him because of that. But Hooker is not necessarily a one-punch knockout artist. And again, I don't have faith in him to not get taken down. So Saint-Denis is the pick. He is the somewhat prohibitive favorite because at minus 333 to minus 360, I don't think I would touch that. Hooker at plus 200, plus 275, I don't think I would touch that either. But yeah, older, aging fighter, has had problems with dynamic wrestlers before. I'm taking the younger Benoit Saint-Denis. Rafael Fiziev versus Mauricio Hufi. This fight I'm kind of weirded out by because the favorite here is Hufi at minus 120 to minus 132. Fiziev's plus 100 to plus 105. Now I get it. Hufi's exposure of sorts was against Benoit Saint-Denis, and Fiziev does not fight like Benoit Saint-Denis. I understand that. I get that. This is a very different test for him. But goddamn, this guy had a hard time with James Lontop. Can we not overrate Hufi because he did something cool against King Green, please? Can we not do that? He's powerful, he's dynamic, he's exciting. Don't get me wrong. Like I want Hufi to win here because he seems like a really fun fighter potentially, but I don't think he's actually put it together yet. I'm going with Fiziev. I think Fiziev's the better striker. I think Fiziev is a tough guy who is not going to be cowed by Hufi's power. Hufi can be kind of low output. Hufi can be kind of very vulnerable being put on the back foot. And Fiziev recently with a more wrestling heavy game and also just a general more pressure oriented game has been really capable of making people uncomfortable. He just beat Ignacio Bahamondes. I don't know why people are on the Hufi bandwagon on this fight. But we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Hufi will like spin kick his head into the front row. I don't know. But I have Fiziev by decision. I don't want to pick the Tai Tuivasa versus Talasha Teixeira fight because what it comes down to is I don't have a lot of faith in Teixeira to actually maximize his physical abilities. This is a coaching thing. It's kind of like the Atiba Gauthier thing where like I just don't think he's surrounded by the people that are going to be facilitating his move forward as far as technical development and sophistication at Team Lucas Bonero. There is basically no one else here. Like there's Kevin Vijayos and Viviane Pereira. If you're like a really big women's MMA fan, you'll know her. But there's no one his size. Oh, and Andre Lima. Okay. But there's no one his size that is worth a damn. And that is my dominant concern about him actually putting it together. And he got knocked out by Derek Lewis, which, given that I just said Derek Lewis appears to be kind of done, is not really a great sign. And in the other corner, you have Tai Tuivasa, who has not won since 2022. It's been 4 years. And he's lost 5 in a row. And his last win was against Derek Lewis. But I keep thinking to myself, what does Teixeira do that Jairzinho Rozenstruik does? Not really anything. Marcin Tybura? Not really. Alexander Volkanovski? Nah. Cyril Gane? Nah. Sergey Pavlovich is kind of comparable, but like at the same time, Sergey Pavlovich has outworldly power. And I'm not actually convinced that Teixeira has that. So, and then I looked at the betting odds, and Teixeira is a sizable underdog, plus 200, 240 to plus 300. I'm just like, you know what? Pardon me, Tuivasa is. I think I said Teixeira. Tuivasa is the underdog. And I was like, screw it. I'm going to take a flyer on Tuivasa and just say that Teixeira needs to show me that he's actually able to beat somebody of like quality. And I guess you could say that at the same time, Tuivasa really needs to show me he is somebody of quality. But I do think that he's better than Justin Tava and Arthur Lopez. I don't feel good about this fight. I'm going with Tuivasa. Just enjoy it. TKO is my answer. Quillan Selkin's going to knock out Jamie Mullarkey next. I will say the odds at minus 800 to minus 1250 are maybe a bit long. Plus 500, plus 750 for Mullarkey. Jack Slack put this best. Jamie Mullarkey is a guy who's been knocked out a bunch lately. He's being put up against UFC's new knockout kid. He's going to get knocked out. That's what they're hoping for, and I don't see any reason not to pick it. Junior Taffa versus Billy Alacana. Not going to talk much about this fight. Junior Taffa is bad. I don't think the move to 205 actually helps him much. Maybe it will. Maybe it dedicates him. Maybe it sees him take some serious training. I don't think so. I got Alacana. I'm not a fan of Alacana, so I don't think he's particularly good either, but he's better. So Alacana by decision is my pick, but like a late stoppage is on the table. Honestly, if Alacana actually elects to like emphasize his grappling, he'll probably get this done. Cam Roston versus Cody Brundrich. Been going back and forth with this one because I don't really have a lot of faith in them. Like, Ralston had a good knockout in his debut. Solid. 2 thumbs up. Great. Fantastic. Beat Andre Petroski, who's not nothing. But, yeah, I still think that he's really just kind of a tall guy. He doesn't necessarily have great footwork. Like, he's got power, he's got height, he's got size. But he does not have a lot of the other stuff. And the only reason I'm picking him here is because Cody Brundrich has a tendency to get whacked really hard. But he's also very tough and recoverable. So I don't know. I'm going with Roston, but anyone who's betting on him at minus 345 to minus 375, don't do that. This is a guy whose wrestling was highly exploited by both Jacob Malkoun and Torres Finney. Cody Brundrich is, when he bothers to remember that he's a wrestler, a pretty good wrestler. So I predict this will be chaotic and sloppy. There you go. That's my actual pick. But roasted by TKO is the pick in the end. But if you're betting on this one, bet on Brundrich at underdog odds because do not like ever pick roasted at minus 300 plus. That's insane. Jacob Malkoun, Torres Finney. I'm picking Malkoun. He is the favorite, minus 140 to minus 152, plus 118 to plus 125 on Finney. This is a battle of 2 human bowling balls. And I'm just hoping that Malkoun, who's a little bit more fun, a little bit more scrambly, a little bit more dynamic, has the better striking of the two, has the better gas take of the two, I think, will be able to beat Finney in the end of the day because Finney is boring as all heck. And I can't believe the UFC brought him back that many times in the Dana White Contender Series. I don't get it. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you're going to bring him back that many times, he's going to keep winning. You have to sign him. Like you just have to. But he is really dull. Oban Elliott versus Jonathan McAuliffe. McAuliffe is the favorite here at minus 132 to minus 142, plus 100, plus 115 for Elliott. I think I looked at those odds and went, you know what, I'm just going to pick the underdog here. McAuliffe does have the more sizzle factor to him. Like he is legitimately fast. He legitimately has really good speed, a 6-foot tall frame, 77-inch reach. At welterweight, there's a lot to work with there. But aside from beating Kevin Jousset, the actual in-cage hasn't been terribly convincing. Like, I didn't find his regional career all that convincing. And Oban Elliott, who is a guy who also I didn't find very convincing on the regional scene, has performed pretty well. I think he has definitely more of a ceiling because I don't think he has the X factor physically that we're looking for that like really would be required to go to that next level. But he works at a good pace. He's reasonably tough. He adapts fairly well. He boxes well. Yes, he did get trucked by Sokyung Ho, but Ko is a like dedicated wrestler, and that is the furthest thing from what McAuliffe is. So I'm going with Elliott, but like I honestly wouldn't be surprised if this went either way. It would be fine. I'm picking Elliott underdog like odds basically. That's all I'm doing, and I'm finishing it up with a underdog pick that I didn't expect to be an underdog pick here. Con Offley versus Yiz Ha. I'm going with Offley by decision. I don't think Offley is tremendously good. I think he's physically limited. But the dude does have a little bit of something. He has some decent depth of skill, both as a striker, a grappler, and a wrestler. So he's well-rounded. He tries hard. He prepares well. He conditions well. He's recently, I think, moved to a notably better training environment. It still says that he's out of Absolute MMA and Conditioning with Jack Jenkins. But I think he moved somewhere else. I could be wrong on that. And I think he wins here because Yiz Ha is not good. Like, I appreciate Yiz Ha's bravery, his heart, his scrappiness, his creativity. Has a little bit of pop. But, like, technically, the only good part of his game is his grappling. And his grappling often lands him in bigger trouble than he started in, to be honest. Because he's a bit crazy. And I'm confused why he's a minus 200 to minus 215 favorite. I am happily going to rock the plus 163, plus 170 underdog Con Offley. By decision, because Yiz Ha is really, really tough. But I feel like Yiz Ha is like coasting off of a like really, really good last fight where he knocked someone out in 37 seconds. And people are forgetting that 37-second knockout was against Weston Wilson. Weston Wilson is bad. Like, legendarily bad. I'll leave it at that. Anyways, not going to give you the road to the UFC picks because I'm just not familiar enough with the fighters. My apologies. But yeah, that'll be all. And I'll see you after the fights. You can follow me over on Twitter if you want my play-by-play. Not my play-by-play, but my round recaps. There is the Discord server in the links down below if you want to join up in the MMA Fight Simulator. And there is links to my video gaming stuff and all that fun. You know the drill. Take a look. That's all. Have a good one, everybody. And hopefully the fights are dope.